Okay, so let us start at the beginning. This is how we do Klaviyo audits here at Magnet Monster. So I'm going to start off with the first area of consideration, which is email deliverability. It is the very first part of an account that we start analyzing to see if we can find some issues. So I'm going to jump in and out of different tools, different brands. I'm not just going to focus this one audit on a particular brand. I want to show you some variation within it. You will, of course, probably focus it on one single client or one single account, and you'll be able to learn a lot from this walkthrough here. So let's start from the top here, okay? First of all, we want to look at your client or your sending infrastructure. It can get a little bit technical in this area, but the very first thing that you want to confirm is, are you sending from a dedicated sending domain, or are you sending via a shared IP pool, and so on. The preferred option is to go with a dedicated sending domain, because then you've got a lot more control over your sending reputation. So there's a couple of ways to look for this particular setup. Firstly, sign up to your newsletter, okay? And then once you receive emails from the brand, you can click on it, and you can actually, if you click on this little drop down arrow here in Gmail, you can look at the sending infrastructure here. So I can see here it's been sent, signed by carve.com, mailed by send.carve.com, and I can clearly see here that they are sending through a dedicated sending domain. They're sending through their own domain here. So that's good. If I look at the next one, for instance, I can see here there's an email being sent through from Shopify email. So signed by shopifyemail.com. So they're not sending from their own dedicated sending domain. So of course, yeah, they would ideally want to switch over to the dedicated sending domain. Same here, email received from Klaviyo. You can clearly see there, signed by klaviyomail.com, and so on. This is a clear indication that they haven't set up their dedicated sending domain. Now, it is definitely beneficial to have it set up, just because, again, if you're sending from a shared IP pool, there are a likelihood of other senders affecting the reputation of that IP pool. So that's one way to check for it. Okay, the other way is to check within the actual Klaviyo account. So here you can clearly see backend carved. They've set it up clearly within their Klaviyo account under the settings configuration, so that's all good. If you look at the next brand here, I will just hide the brand just for privacy reasons. You can see that it's also getting flagged by Klaviyo directly, and you can see under the domain configurations there, they haven't set up a branded sending domain as their dedicated sending domain. So of course here they would want to switch over to that. So just for video's sake, I will mark this one as, let's say, 0. It's not set up correctly. And yeah, we usually just note things down, not set up correctly. Okay. Okay. You then want to move over to checking or analyzing the health or the setup of your sending domain. Okay. DMARC, DKIM, SPF, all these different policies, sender policies that you wanna obviously have set up correctly. And then BIMI is also there for message identification. It just identifies trust signals and so on. So if I quickly do a scan, our favorite tool of use is EasyDMARC. You can add in the sending domain. I've added in DiroDrive, for instance, and you can see it's scoring at 7 out of 10. DMARC is average setup, SPF correctly, DKIM, BIMI, all in the greens here. So you can use a tool like this just to check for that. They also do spit out the suggestions there. Did I complete this one as well? Let me check here. Yep. This one was checked for, I can't remember which domain. I think it was Olipop. You can again see there's some issues, like for instance, if you click on that, you can see BME status for Olipop, BME record not detected. So you can clearly see, the issues at hand here. So lovely tool, EasyDMARC. They've got a great tool to scan your sending domain. Okay, you can then go ahead and mark these ones. Let's say we mark them as 50, 50, 50, and let's say this is completely missing. Of course, you can just add in the findings and stuff. Yeah. The next section is looking at performance insights within the ESP. You want to look at unsubscribe rate, bounce rate, spam complaint rate. So I'll just quickly highlight some of this. Again, I'm hiding the brand for privacy purposes. So bounce rate here, you can see bounce rate is pretty average here. You can look at the benchmark there, 1%, way below the average benchmark. This is over a period of the last 90 days. So you can see it's very safe. And then there's a big spike here, Apple 2.69. Let me just move my face here. 2.69, there's been a bit of a bounce here. It could have been because of a blast campaign sent. So they would want to clean up their email list, for instance, or they want to segment correctly because you do want to exclude hard bounces from your targeting. I do know that Klaviyo also takes care of cleaning out lists, suppressing them if there's a lot of bounces being occurred. Unsubscribe rate, you can see there, you of course want to aim for, a low enough unsubscribe rate. You can see for this particular brand, it's healthy, 0.3, 0.4, 0.3. That's kind of the average range we see for D2C brands. Spam complaint rate, you want to keep this one again as low as possible, below 0.3%, I believe. And you can see here, spam complaint rate's pretty fine. So this brand is doing pretty well in this area. So I'll mark them unsubscribe rate. It's healthy. Of course, 75, you can always be better. Bounce rate, there's some spike. Spam complaint rate's actually well. And you can just add in your little notes here and so on. Right, the next one is email verification and email list hygiene. Now, because of this particular bounce, something has happened here. Is it a soft bounce? Is it a hard bounce? Is it a hard bounce because the email address is not valid? There's a couple of invalid email addresses. Now, of course, you want to send emails to a clean list just because a lot of bounces might signal to the ISPs out there, the Googles, the Yahoos, that you are sending emails to an email list that you've potentially purchased. There's a couple of tools out there that you can use to run an email verification process. You've got email list verify, sign up for an account, you export your database, the email addresses, upload it. They then use their scanning tool or engineering side to kind of pick up on, you can see in the screenshot here, they will then tell you out of 400 emails, 355 are valid, 5 are invalid, 10 has the potential to see you end up in spam traps, and so on. Some of them are disposable emails. Those ones you want to, of course, suppress within your ESP. Just remove them entirely. There's email list verify, zero bounce is also there. They will also give you a score on your email database, and there's also a never bounce. They all accomplish something similar. So let's say you've done your big scan. You'll basically mark it, 75%. And then you'll also look for if the client or you have a regular email list hygiene cleaning step in your process. Have you connected your ESP to one of these platforms perhaps? Is there a process around it? Have you set up a system within Klaviyo or your other ESP to constantly suppress and clean your emails and so on? If you've got something in place, brilliant. Then once again, you'll make your notes here. All great. IP domain reputation. So there's a couple of ways in which you can do this. You can set up Google Postmaster tools to, of course, regularly monitor your sending reputation, or you can use a set of free tools out there. So I've listed a couple of them here. For instance, this one here. EasyDMARC IP domain reputation check. I'm just checking on Pet Relief. There's no listing here. It seems to be a clean sending domain. I've used zero bounce here, zero dry. IP domain blacklist checker. There's nothing being blacklisted here. You can see there. No blacklists. Manage engine site 24x7. Again, not picking up on any blacklist instances. You can even use MX Toolbox. Again, checking carve.com as a setting domain. It looks like it's spam free. That's on checking for spam listing. This one, yeah. Okay. So let's say this is in the clear. There's no problem. You'll make a little note here. And then this one you need to set up for your client. There's obviously a link to the how-to documentation. Set it up and then monitor that. Once you have the data, of course, you'll add it in here and you'll add in your notes. Lastly is looking at legal requirements. For some brands, it's critical for can spam in the USA, you want a clear unsubscribe link within your emails. When it's GDPR, you also want to ensure that you have that tackled. So if I go to some of these, let's say Drunk Elephant, for instance, if I scroll down, I can clearly see there's an unsubscribe link here. They do have their physical address within the footer, so they actually pass it. So I'll mark that with 100%. Add your notes in here, all set up and correct, for instance. That basically concludes email deliverability. So you can see this particular sheet that we are using, and we will link out to a free copy of this so you can get your own version. You can see the email deliverability for this particular, let's call it brand, 79%. So it looks to be very healthy. Everything seems healthy except for like the sending infrastructure has a lot of work. If they can fix this, it will take them to the next level. We also pull it through to this main little summary graph score thing here. You can see there's 79%, and of course we want to aim for 90% within the next 3 months or so. And that's email deliverability as the first starting point for this email health score Klaviyo Audit series. The next section that we look at is one of the most critical sections within any ESP for a D2C brand, and those are the flow automations. Now, it's a very difficult subject to cover in an audit video just because there's rarely a plug-and-play solution to this. Filters, triggers, email designs, messaging, split paths, usage of SMS, duration of the flow, timing of it, SMS usage. That all differs between different brands, different types of life cycle stages in the customer's journey, and so on. Okay, but I'll give you a quick little insight into how we tend to break it down. Now, on the sheet that we use, we've broken it down into the different stages of the buyer's life cycle, life cycle with the particular brand. So pre-purchase consideration, you're looking at like welcome flow, back in stock flow, low inventory, price drop, and so forth. This is prior to them buying from you. Purchase recovery is someone that showed intention to buy from you, but they haven't completed the purchase. Abandoned cart, checkout abandonment, browse abandonment, added to cart abandonment, low inventory alert, and so on. You then have post-purchase and retention. So when someone purchases from you, what happens after that? And how do you get them to buy for a second time? And then you have churn risk. So anyone that is lapsing in your database, how do you get them to show interest again in the brand? How do you get them resubscribe? How do you prevent them or intervening when they're looking to potentially unsubscribe from your subscription service? Now, within each of these different stages, you get a set of flows. Now, the first thing that you want to determine for your client, for your team, for your brand is which flows do we need to enable during which stage. Okay, now you would need to map out your entire journey to obviously understand that. The second thing to take note of is Some of them have a direct contribution to revenue, like there's a strong correlation in the amount of revenue that you drive from it. In other cases, it's less easy to measure the revenue. It could be more impactful on other channels in the business. For instance, oh, I'm collecting user-generated content from this flow, so it helps us to generate better ads. But it doesn't have a direct correlation with revenue attributed to the ESP, but you can make money in other areas, okay? That's critical for prioritization. So you also want to ensure that you prioritize things correctly. So let me quickly show you one flow, and then I'll leave it up to you to, of course, rate and audit flows within your account or client's account. Also remember here, there's other audits out there stipulating that you need 5 of this, 2 of that, 30 minutes of that. I don't always believe that, because at the end of the day, then it becomes very cookie cutter. If a welcome flow is not longer than 12 emails, you're leaving money on the table. It's a lie. It can work for some brands. For other brands, it's just too long. It's wasted. So you need to, of course, know your numbers inside out. But let me focus on one for a second. Okay, we've got welcome flow. Yeah, I'm going to focus on this one. Yeah, very popular flow. I'm in a Klaviyo account for D2C brand. So, of course, you first want to look at the trigger. Is the trigger correctly set up? When someone enters this flow, are they entering it at the right time, with the right event, right action? So for this particular brand, it has been set to when someone joins the carved email list, that's the master email list. That's after they've submitted the opt-in form. Now this is correct. Okay, so the brand passes that one. You want to look at flow filters. Do they have the correct flow filters set up, or have they incorrectly blocked out people receiving the emails within the welcome flow? We sometimes see people set up incorrect filters. They have removed filters because this welcome flow is targeting both new and existing customers. So they've correctly applied no filters here. So you want to look at that. You then want to look at conditional splits. Are the split paths correct? Are they splitting, people correctly within the flow? For this particular brand, you could flag that new and existing, instead of having a split within the same flow, you might want to create a brand new flow targeting each, okay? Because it's much easier to, of course, measure the performance of the results when you split, segments out more granularly. But then you obviously need to be able to manage that. So yeah, it's fine. Okay, the split here is fine. So you could either flag it as it's bad or it's good, depending on your thinking here, your methodology. Then you want to obviously look at each of the emails here. You want to look at subject lines. You want to look at preview text. You want to test out coupon codes. You want to test out hyperlinks. You want to look at motion, animation, design, messaging, call to action buttons. You want to look at the footers at the bottom here, see if everything is working, and so on. You want to look at this on a mobile device to ensure that it's mobile friendly. The list goes on. HTML size and. That once you've had a look at each of these different components within the emails, okay, you can then of course score it. You then also want to move over to your time delays. Is 1 day in between the emails too aggressive? Is it too conservative? Do you want to ramp it up? Do you maybe want to also bring in some plain text emails alongside other emails? Again, there's no catch-all scenario for all D2C brands. Okay, this is where A/B testing comes in. The splits here look fine. The time delays look fine. I can see there. There's 2 days there, 2 days there. So this is a much longer email. And then after a couple of days, they kind of ease up on the time delays. They're not using a lot of SMS here. Okay, I'm only seeing emails here. So of course I can now rank the brand according to my knowledge here. So what I can do here is I can give it a general score. We don't score it on a very detailed level where you've got the welcome flow and then you've got filter and splits and this and split paths. You can, of course, branch it out in that way, but that sometimes drives you crazy because there's so much to check. But what we do is we give it an overall score. I'm going to give this a score of 75. Okay, then in my notes section here, I will then point out some of the things. I will point out here that trigger correct, for instance. You can say split paths correct. SMS usage could be improved or missing, and so forth. Okay, that's how we do it here. We have a look at, because we've got years and years of experience, okay, we know what to look for, okay. We add our notes in here, add our score, and then we know where the weaknesses are and where they're not, okay. Let me just quickly score a few of these because I want to trigger my overall score thingy. Okay. So now once you've completed the flow section here and you've added in your little notes here, you will of course be able to see that flow automation in general for this particular business is at 44% out of 100. Okay, you can see there 44 out of 100. So there's a lot of effort and work that we can put in here to gain some additional wins. That's the section flow automation. Okay, let's continue on the journey of completing a Klaviyo audit for a D2C brand. So I'm going to move my face over to that side. Okay, the next section that I want to cover is around auditing campaign strategies within a Klaviyo account. The very first one there is looking at the send cadence. How often are emails or SMS being sent in a campaign format? Now, there is no formula out there that is going to give you a clear answer because it depends, okay? Depends on the size of the business. It depends on the size of the email database. It depends on the email deliverability performance. If you see high unsubscribe rates or you see high marked email as spam rates, you don't want to be oversending emails to the database. Okay, that would be silly. Also, if you are generating a good amount of revenue per email send, if it's sales focused, great. That's a good indication that the cadence is good. Also, you want to send a variation of content types and so on. So there is no black and white easy way to determine this. So when you do an audit, look at the size of the account, look at the size of the database, look at other metrics like inbox placement rate, email deliverability, and so on. And then you mark this with a certain score. So I'm going to, let's say for argument 7.5, because they're sending, I don't know, 3 emails per week and they mix it up and email deliverability performance is good. Again, if you are an expert at your craft, you will be able to give a clear indication here. Also, it depends on your segmentation. If you're going to send, to the same segment every single time, that could be problematic. But if you're going to be sending campaigns to different segments, then cadence has a lot more freedom. Okay, let's talk about the next one, content topics. Sending a good mix of promo, product launch, survey, and educational messages. We see this way too often. Brands tend to just pepper their email database with sales emails, promo. It's just too full on. Okay, you do want a mix of content topics to send out. Otherwise, you also run the risk of inbox blindness. So people kind of ignore your emails because they know that it's just sales driven. And also you want your audience to engage with emails and make it gamification and collect, qualitative data and so forth. Again, there is no set formula out there in terms of ratios, how much promo materials should you push out, how much product launch. There is no formula there, okay? But use your brain, use your common sense, okay? So you mark that one and you jot down your notes. Next one is message type. Okay, message type. For a lot of D2C brands out there, you want to send a mix of both email and SMS messages. Sometimes you could send push messages. Sometimes you could be sending direct mail like postcards. Sometimes it could be WhatsApp if you're in the European countries especially. Sometimes you only send emails. Okay, so again, if there is a high likelihood of generating revenue via SMS, you will of course you will score it according to the nature of that business. If they generate high revenue with SMS and email, you want to check and ensure that they are sending both type of messages. If they're not sending SMS currently, but you know they can make revenue from it, then of course you're going to mark it a certain score. Campaign design messaging. You want to look at the emails and the SMS messages that are being sent out. Do they look modern? Do they look striking, like visually striking? Are they mobile optimized? Are there high converting call to action buttons high up on the email? Are you repeating some of your call to action buttons? Is the color contrast, so accessibility wise, it's good, and so on. Again, there is no clear formula here. You need to also run different tests on accounts to kind of know what works. Sometimes a plain text email works. So you do use some of your background knowledge in judging campaign designs and messaging. I always say, treat it as if you are a consumer of the brand. Will it get me to convert and buy again? Is the message striking in the sense that you are talking about pain points, gains, losses, and so on? Yep. Again, there is a lot of subjectivity within this particular one, but remember here, your team, your clients, they are looking at you for advice and guidance. So do some research, see what's best practice, what is the minimum font size for mobile, fonts, and so forth. You're going to score that one, and you're going to give you recommendations. Next one here, A/B testing, easy one here. If the database size is big enough, you always want to run A/B tests. Obviously sensible, valuable A/B tests, not wishy-washy subject line tests, because you then gain learnings that you can share with the business, the brand, the teams, your clients, and so on. So pretty easy one. Are they running A/B tests on a frequent basis? Yes, no. Add in the notes. Let's quickly go into segments and scheduling and exclusion segments. So segmentation is, again, another subjective matter here. Sometimes people send to a very specific cohort. Let's say I'm going to send it out to females or men or both, or only people that purchased in the last 7 days, or I'm going to send it to a 30-day engaged audience, and so forth. You need to look into your account, your client's account, look at the segmentation, see where it makes sense, and then make a judgment call here. There is no black and white answer here once again, but segmentation is everything, so you want to ensure that it is done correctly. And to get this right, you need to know the business, you need to know the email database, you need to know the products, and you need to know the timing of the different touch points in their journey with your brand. Exclusions, critical here to set your exclusion segments on campaign sends. Look at the Klaviyo account, look at historical sends. Are they excluding people that bounce more than X amount of time? Are they including spammers? Are they excluding recent purchases if you don't want to email your recent purchases? Are they excluding people that have logged a product return or refund? You don't want to send to those people that are unhappy about the product. Are you excluding people that gave you a negative, a bad review? Look at your exclusion segments in the account and make a judgment call from there on. And that's pretty much campaigns. Let's quickly wrap up campaigns here. So you want to look at the cadence. Is it a fair cadence? Are they oversending perhaps, and it's hurting their inbox placement rate? There's there's inbox blindness, and so on. Content topics, is there a good mix of educational, sales, promo, product launches, gamification, and so on? Are you sending both email and SMS where applicable? So are you sending direct mail where applicable? If not, so only send SMS, only send emails. Is the campaign design and the messaging, is the design sexy? Is it according to best practices, mobile optimized? Is the messaging striking and high converting? Are they doing A/B testing if the volumes allow for that? Are they doing segmentation correct? They are segmenting the right audiences here. And are they excluding the correct the segments in Klaviyo or whatever tool? So it doesn't hurt their email deliverability performance. And again, you don't annoy people by sending them irrelevant stuff. Okay, the next section in the audit sheet is looking at the core technical setup within the Klaviyo backend. A lot of low-hanging fruit in this section here, so do not skip over it. Let's dive in here. So the very first one is your campaign sending default configuration. Is it set to send time or have you set it to schedule time? Let's go into Klaviyo quickly and I'll show you what this means. Where do you find this? You go into the settings of the backend and then you click on account and you go to messaging. So here you can see the two options here. There is schedule time and there's send time. By default, schedule time is the selected option. You can see there, okay? You want to perhaps set it to send time. What's the difference between the two? So let's say this particular brand, your client's brand, they schedule a lot of their campaigns well in advance. Okay, let's say 2-3 weeks in advance. When you set your target segmentation, you kind of lock it in with Klaviyo and Klaviyo will send it to that database. Okay. But when you set it to send time, what will happen is Klaviyo, between your schedule time and the time that it gets delivered or sent, some people might still join that segmentation within Klaviyo. All new people that join after you've scheduled the campaign, they will also be included in the send or receiving of the particular email. So this is very, very applicable if you schedule well in advance. That's this is this one. Okay, so set your score, make a note. This one is, next one is CSS optimization. Okay, you go into email. Okay, and then you can see there it has been enabled. This is merely a way to essentially compress some of your CSS code that gets added within the email. So your coding part, your styling part, it helps with eliminating, clipping issues. So you want to enable this just because it does compress some of the code within your email builds. Okay, mark that, all good. Next one here is attribution setting. Are Apple privacy opens being excluded? So after the iOS 15 security upgrade or update, people can set on their mobile devices that they don't want to be tracked. Okay, you don't want those people to skew some of your data. So let's quickly find that within the particular settings. Okay, let me just quickly find it. Give me 1 second. Yep. You want to set it to this one, yeah, because then all opens and clicks, it excludes Apple privacy opens, meaning that there's a higher chance of having clean data within your Klaviyo reports when you think of open rates and click rates. So score that one. Okay, next one is your email tracking pixel placed at the top of the email. So if I go back to email tracking, yeah, email tracker position. So the default is at the bottom of the email content. You want to set it to top of email content, because if you set it to trigger at the bottom of an email, if it's a very long email and it gets truncated and there's a lot of clipping happening and someone's network is slow and they don't load the entire email, the tracking pixel might not fire and you might have some missing data within your Klaviyo data or reports. So it's best to just set it at the top, because usually an email loads from top to bottom. So there's a higher likelihood of the pixel getting loaded. So mark that. Next one is your metrics. Okay, your added to cart and your viewed product metrics. Are they set up correctly and are they working? Okay, especially when you've got a Shopify integration into Klaviyo. So you go to analytics, you go to metrics, and immediately type in viewed product. For instance, viewed product, go into that metric, and then look to see if you have spotted triggers for the last 7 days. You can see, yeah, it is triggering correctly every single day. So it seems to be working fine. In many cases, we see flat lines of the data here. That means that the metric or the tracking of this is broken. It could be on the Shopify theme side of things. It could be that the code has been implemented incorrectly. So look at that to see if it's working. Right, it's fine there. Anonymous visitor tracking. So you want to go back to your configuration, your settings. Okay, you want to go, I believe it's under data. You want to set this to enable anonymous visitor tracking, because how this works is if someone has been visiting your site, Klaviyo picked up that someone visited your site, but they weren't able to identify the person through that cookie. What will happen is whenever they sign up via the Klaviyo opt-in form, for instance, they will essentially stitch the data together to highlight some of the pages they have viewed historically before they've opted in. And then you can retarget them based off of their previous behavior and site activity. So enable this one so you can have better data stitching within the account. So that looks fine. Your preference pages. You want to go into your preference pages here under other. Yeah. You want to check to see if it's branded correctly. You want to check to see if you are collecting the right zero-party data and other data points, for instance, birth dates or other preferences like send volumes and frequencies and so forth. And you also want to ensure that there is a success page. So if that's in order, yes, and give your suggestions. Smart sending time period. So let's quickly look at smart sending. If I go back here, go one back. Smart sending, just for your information, is a very sensitive matter, because again, there's no black and white answer to this. Sometimes people want to be quite aggressive with their smart send times. Sometimes people want to be more conservative, depending on the brand. But the default is usually very acceptable. Like someone will receive an email every 16 hours. Okay, that is very handy. Just because you don't want to over message your database, so you don't want to go way less than 16 hours. And you also want to ignore transactional messages, because then someone will receive transactional messages even, within the smart sending, time frame. And you don't want them to skip. You don't want them to skip the order confirmation emails just because they've received a welcome flow email, right this second. So that's that one. That's that one. So that's acceptable. You then also want to look at form overlap. So there is a setting within Klaviyo where you can enable it so more than one form within Klaviyo cannot trigger at the same time. You want to find that, you want to enable it, just because we've seen cases where clients use more than one opt-in form within Klaviyo and then it triggers at the same time or a few seconds after one another, and it's very distracting and so on. So set that and ensure that that is in place. That is a big batch of low-hanging fruit stuff under core technical setup. Very, very handy stuff. Ensure that you have it in place. Right, next section in the Klaviyo audit sheet is looking at your SMS setup within Klaviyo. Remember now, this is very specific to a Klaviyo backend setup and not a different platform. Okay, so Klaviyo only. So I'm going to quickly go over some of these things, and then I'll look at the backend of a Klaviyo account to show you how it has been set up. Very first one there is your company info is completed, and you've set your organization's avatar within the backend. So let's quickly go to the SMS setup. You go into your configuration in your settings, click on SMS, and then you'll be able to access everything in this panel. Yeah. So let's have a look here. You can see they've set up their phone number. Everything is activated and working. If you scroll down, you can see company information is there, street address, and so on. Okay, they haven't uploaded an organizational image, so there's a little bit of a low-hanging fruit there. So that you will mark, it's missing an image. Okay, let's go over to the next one. Organizational prefix and opt-out language correctly enabled and configured. So you can get that at the prefix. Okay, you can see there, it has been set to zero dry, and the opt-out language is stop. If someone, sends the keyword stop, they will get opt-out. So this is fine, that has been set. You want to ensure that there is a company name in the organizational prefix, so people actually can identify the sender when they receive an SMS. So that looks to be fine. Smart send time. You want to go into your smart send time here. I think it is under, there's a lot of options under the configuration panel here that sometimes you do get lost yourself. Smart sending is set to 24 hours. That is good. So someone will only receive an SMS every 24 hours from you. Some brands set it to 12 hours, some 24, but you don't want to over, message people with your SMS messages. So that looks good. If your client is lower than 12 hours, you kind of want to flag it with them. SMS quiet hours is during what period of the day can they receive an SMS from you? 8 p.m. to 11 a.m. the next morning. Sorry, I'm lying here. So it will be from 11 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. at night or the evening. Okay, that is the default setting, and if it's anything different to this, you flag it with your client or your team and so forth. You don't want to be sending SMS messages late night or late morning, just because, remember now, people can kind of ignore emails, but you can't ignore SMS messages. And sometimes people use, SMS for family emergencies, and you might wake someone up while they're busy sleeping. So you don't want to disrupt them. Okay, there's quiet hours on this front. That looks fine. Attribution. Let's look at the attribution window here. Attribution. Let's go to attribution. They've set it to SMS. SMS to 1 day. That is the default, and that is all good and well. You can leave it to 1 day, the default. If your client has set this to more than 1 day, or your team has set it to more than 1 day, it should be okay if it's at least between 1 and 3 days. But if it's more than 3 days, you want to flag it with them. But 1 day is the default, so that's fine. Okay, your subscribe keywords. Let's have a look at the keyword setup within the account. Automations, I believe. Okay, here's your keywords. You can, of course, edit the text here, because sometimes out of the box the text isn't great, so you can amend it. These are all the keywords, but you want to scroll down to the bottom. There is a subscribe keyword called join. So if someone subscribes to join or text join to whatever number, they will get subscribed to this newsletter list here. You want to ensure that it goes to the correct list, so that's all good. That has been set, and if it's not set and it's missing, you want to of course set it. Mobile terms of services, generated and hosted. If you go far down, you can see there's the mobile terms of service. It's there, it has been published, it's live, and there is also an SMS opt-in disclaimer. So that's all good and well, and you can access it through the different URLs. If it's not set up, ensure that you set it up for your business or for your client, because you don't want to land in a lawsuit of any sort. SMS opt-in disclaimer has also been set up, just checked it. Short link, let's have a look at the short link here. So you can create custom links that looks closer tied in with your brand. So it's not just Klaviyo, branded. Now you can of course enable one for yourself. On this particular account, it hasn't been enabled just yet, but you can absolutely request or add a branded Klaviyo link or even a custom one once you've requested it. That's just for people to, of course, distinguish or basically they can pick up that you are the sender, they're familiar with you and so forth. It's got a bit of a familiarity around it. So this is not set up for this account, so of course you can recommend it. And that's basically SMS setup in Klaviyo. You can also, of course, if you want to expand on this one, you could ensure that the SMS numbers are set up correctly, and so on. But this is very much the bare bones of SMS setup within Klaviyo. Okay, next section within the Klaviyo audit sheet is subscriber list growth. Pop-ups. How can you get more opt-ins so your email subscriber list grows and expands? Massive part of what we do here at Magnet Monster, and it's important for your brand, your team, and your client's brand as well. So let's dive in here. It's going to be quite a full one. I'll try and move as fast as I can here. So accessibility, desktop and mobile friendly forms being served on your store. So you want to ensure that this is our best practice. We prefer doing this. You want to create separate pop-ups for mobile users and desktop users, because then you can better control the sizing of fonts, the size of your visuals, the size of your buttons and your form fields and so on. Okay, your touch targets. So that's the very first thing that we look at. Have you set one for desktop and one for mobile, separate ones? We're going to be looking at Klaviyo backend here. We're not going to be looking at third-party tool pop-ups and so forth. We also like to separate the two, because you can then look at performance reporting on a device level. So we do it for DeroDrive. You can see there. Okay, so yep, all good. Display trigger configuration, how quickly your pop-up appears. Now, this is a very controversial thing to audit, just because there's different likings and different viewpoints into this one. Some people like it aggressive, like immediately. Some people like to give people some time to first, browse through the pages and the home page or wherever they enter. before we serve them a pop-up. So you need to first determine what is the need for the business. If they want to drive more revenue from email, they want to grow their email list aggressively, they need to be aggressive with their pop-ups, the triggering of it, just because otherwise you're not going to be in a good position to collect opt-ins. So you go into your targeting and behavior, and this particular one is based on a custom trigger, just because they're using third-party tools, AI tools, to serve it in a more personal, customized fashion. Okay, so we're now in an AI, space. So if you hand it over to AI to do it, great. Then you get access to the AI tool so you can better analyze that. Sometimes people set it to immediate. You need to align with your client or your team. So I'm going to set it there. Incentive, you want to look at the incentive. Is it a strong incentive? Is it appealing? Is it very clear at what I'm getting and so on? Is it punchy? Zero drive, there's a testimonial. Question. There's a testimonial here. Okay, and then they ask, there's some zero-party data here. If you click on any of these, you will set some properties in the account. And then there's where the email opt-in stage comes in. Unlock 15% off your first order. There's a testimonial there. So the incentive is very clear. It's strong. It's discount driven, but it's working for their brand. They back it up with a testimonial. So they're doing a good job here. It's very clear. It's easy to see. It's on your first order. It's very bold, bright, striking. So it works for this particular account. So yes. Creative messaging. Is it compelling? Is it impactful? You want to look at the messaging here. You can see, if I go back one question, what are you looking for? Sweat control, prevent odors, sweat and odor control. It's a striking, message, just because you are trying to understand your database more. You want to resemble that you are taking, their needs into account. So it's striking messaging. Okay, what are you looking for? Sweat control, prevent odors, sweat and odor control, improving your life, improving your self-confidence. So it's a very, very good message angle to take. And there's a testimonial, so you're backing up with social proof and so forth. The messaging here is also strong. Unlock 15%. Yeah, it's generic, but for them it does the trick. And then you've got the rest of your copy. So this is fine. In many cases, we see brands don't tap into marketing psychology messaging, like impactful messaging. Again, there's no clear formula here. Use your brain here. 75, because you can always improve here. A/B testing. Are they actively running A/B testing? You want to go back into your main view and see if they have A/B testing installed. I know they are running A/B tests. They're just using the AI tool to run it for them. But do they run A/B testing? Yep. You want to ensure that there's a large amount of visitors that will see the pop-up form, the A and the B version. Otherwise, if your volumes, your site visitor volumes are small, you're wasting your time with A/B testing, because you're going to make false conclusions on your winners and your losers. So don't do it if there's small volumes. Exclusion. Have you excluded pages that you don't want the pop-up to appear on? Targeting. Okay, this particular one has been okay, there's a custom trigger that has been set here. You want to look at excluding your checkout page or a quiz page, where you don't want on a quiz page where you're collecting someone's email address or SMS opt-in. You don't want to serve this pop-up on that form as well. Or there could be other pages where you don't want the pop-up to appear. Set it in the account. Okay. And then you want to ensure that you are collecting the opt-ins to the correct list. So if I go here, if I click on the button, I can see that it is being submitted and collected to the main newsletter within Klaviyo. So that's perfectly fine. Sometimes clients link it, or brands link it to the incorrect list. So yep, that is in order there. Then you want to look at other things like your multi-step form. Are you collecting email addresses? Yep, so there is an email form here, critical one here, of course, because we are email marketers. So you want to ensure that they collect email. If it's relevant to them, are they collecting SMS opt-ins? So on this particular form, they are not collecting it just because they don't send SMS messages anymore. So this is not applicable, so you can remove it from your sheet if it's not applicable. But if they utilize SMS as a marketing vehicle, but they're not collecting it in their forms, of course, you're going to mark them low. Qualitative research, are they collecting zero-party data? So are they collecting preferences, needs, behaviors, and so forth, buying patterns? Yeah, they are, because you can see, yeah, they ask a couple of questions. And if I select any of these, okay, it will set a custom property. Property, what happens is here, you can set a custom property. So if someone clicks on this, you set a custom property. This is just a draft form that we are busy building as well. So you set a profile property, a value of prevent orders. And then what you do is you can retarget them later on in their journey with your campaign messaging and so forth. So you want to set that. For this account, we are collecting it, but it's still in development, so we need to set the property still. Follow-up sequence. So you want to ensure that when someone submits the form, the welcome flow or the newsletter thank you flow confirmation is being triggered. Look at the account in the flow section, sorry, not there. Look in the back end, see if anything triggers. And you also want to see if they submit, if they opt in for SMS, are they receiving an SMS confirmation message? Is it being sent via Klaviyo or some other means? Okay. Then last bits and bobs here is you want to also look at other critical, bits and bobs within the account or on the store. So you want to go look at their checkout. Are they actually collecting opt-ins at the checkout? Because you absolutely want to collect email opt-ins at your checkout so you can push them in Klaviyo and you can remarket to them later down the line. So yeah, is an option to opt in to newsletters. If someone keeps that ticked and they submit their email address, they will opt into receiving emails from you. So yep, that's all good. Are they collecting SMS? Yep, I can also sign up for SMS messages. I can opt in there on the checkout, so that's also good. So that will stream through to Klaviyo. And then you also want to go look at your social channels or your account social channels. Are you using other areas and channels to push list growth? Do you have Instagram posts that prompts people to sign up to your newsletter? Do you have it in other areas, perhaps? Your YouTube channel? Do you have co-marketing initiatives with other brands to help you with list growth? Yes, no? If it's a yes, mark it there and label it there. So that's kind of roughly what we tend to look for when it comes down to subscriber list growth, your pop-in forms, opt-in forms, and so forth. Again, some of these things are very black and white. Some of them are a little bit more subjective. But again, measure this or analyze this as an end customer user. How would you feel about the pop-up visuals, the impact of the messaging, and so forth?